UNC professor's new invention could be life-changing for some patients with diabetes.
Diabetes is almost always associated with finger prick tests and painful injections. But this smart, non-invasive patch opens up the possibility of a big improvement in the quality of life for diabetics.
This tiny patch is actually made from a material you find in common brown seaweed. It works like a living computer, designed to act exactly like a healthy pancreas. No batteries, no software, no wires. Seriously. It runs only on chemistry, pure science. And its goal is to replace a whole century of old medical tech. For over 100 years, people have fought against diabetes using machines. It has been a war of glass syringes, thousands of finger sticks, and complex pumps tethered to patients. This is the story of how a simple patch, which started in the ocean, is going to replace these old-school machines with a biological solution. To truly appreciate the smart patch, let's first look at what job it's designed to replace. For a person with type 1 diabetes, life is an endless series of risky calculations. It is a second job they can never quit, and the numbers are staggering. In a single year, a patient may face over 2,000 insulin injections and more than 3,000 finger sticks. Each one is a single data point in a constant battle for control. But the latest technology has provided better tools for this battle. We have CGMs, continuous glucose monitors that track sugar levels in real time. We have sophisticated insulin pumps that deliver precise doses. But these are still just machines in a human-led manual process. For the patient, it means living with the constant alarm of a CGM or the anxiety that the pump's tubing could block at any moment. For the healthcare worker, it's a never-ending cycle of playing catch-up, constantly adjusting drips and calculating correction doses. This is known as an open-loop system. The sensor collects data and the pump delivers the insulin, but the crucial step in the middle still requires a human. These endless calculations create mental exhaustion just from trying to keep patients safe. What if, instead of trying to build a better machine, we simply copied biology? The answer to that question came from a field of science called biomimicry. It's the idea of solving human problems by copying nature. A team led by bioengineer Dr. Zhen Gu started this groundbreaking work at UNC and later at UCLA. The team looked at the old mechanical, artificial pancreas systems. They saw three separate parts: a sensor, a computer program, and a pump. They realized this multi-part system could easily break down. Then, they looked at the human body. A healthy pancreas has beta cells that store insulin in tiny sacs called vesicles. These sacs don't need an algorithm or a battery. They only release insulin when they sense blood sugar going up. The sensing and releasing happen at the exact same time. This was the eureka moment. The team realized they could stop using machines and start using pure chemistry. The new goal was no longer to build a smarter pump, but to create a material that could act exactly like a beta cell. In 2015, they published their amazing results in a National Academy of Sciences journal. They had created the world's first smart insulin patch. But to copy the pancreas, they needed a material that could literally think. So, how did they build this smart material, or polymer, that thinks for itself? They started with something you'd never guess. The main structure of the patch is built from a natural gel called sodium alginate, which comes from brown seaweed. This safe natural gel creates the perfect base to hold the patch's true secret, an array of over 100 tiny microscopic needles. These microneedles are designed to be completely painless. They are so small, they physically cannot reach the nerves that sense pain deeper in your skin. But the real magic is what's inside them. Each microneedle is packed with an enzyme called GOX, or glucose oxidase. Think of GOX as a tiny security guard that only reacts when it sees blood sugar, aka glucose. When a patient's blood sugar rises, that glucose goes into the needles from the fluid just under the skin. The GOX enzyme instantly starts to break the glucose down. This breakdown uses up the oxygen right there, creating a tiny zone with no oxygen. That drop in oxygen is the trigger. It causes the polymer holding the insulin to suddenly change its properties. The polymer swells up, opening millions of tiny holes that let the stored insulin flow out into the body. Then, the loop closes itself. As the released insulin lowers the blood sugar, less glucose enters the patch. The chemical reaction slows, oxygen levels return to normal, and the material shrinks, closing the holes and stopping the flow of insulin. There are no batteries, no wires, and no computers. It is a completely automatic, self-contained biological feedback loop. This self-regulating chemical loop is a brilliant piece of engineering, but what really matters is the human burden it can lift. Imagine a 9-year-old boy who has had type 1 diabetes since he was 4. For 5 years, his childhood has been all about needles and calculations. He misses recess to go to the nurse. Birthday parties are awkward because everyone can see his pump and tubes. Now, imagine his life with the Smart Patch. His parents put a single coin-sized sticker on his arm once a day. It's painless and nobody notices it. If he eats a slice of cake, the patch automatically senses the sugar spike and releases the perfect amount of insulin needed. There are no more trips to the nurse, no visible gear, and no social stress. The technology quietly handles the disease so he can focus on being a kid. Now, think about a nurse on a 12-hour night shift. She has a patient with diabetes that has hard-to-control blood sugar levels. Every hour, she has to do a finger stick and manually adjust the intravenous insulin drip. She constantly worries about giving too much insulin and causing a fatal sugar crash. With a Smart Patch, that entire workflow is automated. The device handles the micro adjustments in real time. The nurse just checks the patient's sugar levels periodically. Crucially, the patch's internal chemistry creates a safety floor. Once the patient's sugar levels hits a safe baseline, the patch physically stops releasing insulin. This changes the nurse from someone fighting a crisis to a confident caregiver, knowing the patient's blood sugar is safely managed by the patch itself. The science for the Smart Patch is solid and proven, but getting it from a university lab to a real patient is difficult. First, there are the technical problems. The human body is a tough place for the patch to be. In just hours, the body's immune system can cover the tiny needles with proteins, which is called biofouling. This can block the patch from sensing sugar or releasing insulin. There's also an issue with lag time. The patch measures sugar in the fluid under the skin, which is 5 to 15 minutes slower than the sugar in your blood. For slow changes, this is fine, but if blood sugar changes fast, that delay can be dangerous. The next big problem is government regulation. The Food and Drug Administration views the Smart Patch as a combination product because it's both a drug, insulin, and a device, the patch. This means it has to pass the strict safety rules for both drugs and devices. Regulators are mainly worried about insulin dumping, which is if a broken patch releases all its insulin at once. Proving this can never happen under any condition is a massive task. Finally, even if it works perfectly, it faces the challenge of the healthcare system itself. How much will the patch cost? Will insurance cover it, or will only the wealthy be able to afford it, creating a new health gap? And will it work with the hospital's electronic medical record? If it can't communicate with the rest of the system, it just creates more paperwork for busy medical staff. The main problem is no longer the science. The real fight to get it to the pharmacy shelf is now with engineering, government regulations, and economics. The challenges leading to Smart Patch use are hard to overcome, but they are not impossible. And when they are solved, the world will change forever. For the patient, it means a life of freedom, a life no longer planned around shots or counting every carb. The fear of low blood sugar in the middle of the night is gone. You can be spontaneous, and your life will be defined by who you are, not by your disease. For the healthcare worker, it means the end of the constant, high-risk work of managing sugar by hand. All the finger sticks, calculations, and IV changes will be automated. Clinic visits will change from reviewing logbooks to having real conversations about a person's long-term health and quality of life. This technology doesn't just manage a disease. It gives back the most important thing to both patient and provider alike: peace of mind.